The laughter started before I even reached the restaurant table, and I knew something was wrong. Every smiling face around me carried the same look people wear when they're waiting for a joke to land. Then I saw the woman sitting alone near the window, nervously twisting a napkin between her fingers. She was clearly the person I had been set up with, and I instantly realized why everyone was staring. She was much heavier than anyone I had ever dated, and the people who arranged this blind date expected me to walk away in embarrassment. For one painful second, I wondered how many times she had lived through this exact moment before. Then another thought struck me like a punch to the chest. What if you were the one sitting there, hoping someone would simply treat you like a human being? What would you pray they chose to do? My name is Ryan, and I was 34 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio, trying to rebuild a life that had quietly fallen apart after a difficult divorce. My friends believed the best cure for loneliness was another relationship, but they had slowly turned my personal life into entertainment. They often joked about dating disasters and viral moments, never realizing that real hearts were involved. When they convinced me to accept one more blind date, I expected an ordinary evening. Instead, I walked into what had obviously been planned as a cruel prank. The woman waiting by the window introduced herself as Sarah. She looked to be around 32, wearing a simple navy blue dress with a light gray cardigan, her brown hair carefully brushed back, as though she had spent extra time trying to make a good first impression. Her eyes carried both hope and fear, the kind of expression that belongs to someone who has learned not to expect kindness. Around us, I noticed two of my friends pretending to eat while secretly watching every movement we made. Suddenly, everything became painfully clear. They hadn't arranged this date because they thought we would be compatible. They wanted to see me reject her. Sarah began apologizing before I had even sat down. She quietly admitted that blind dates usually ended within a few minutes after the man saw her. She tried to smile while saying it, but her voice revealed years of disappointment. I felt something inside me break. Nobody should ever become so accustomed to rejection that they apologize for existing. I pulled out my chair, smiled, and asked the waiter for 2 menus. Across the room, I watched my friends exchange confused looks as their joke began falling apart. As dinner continued, the room around us slowly disappeared. Sarah wasn't defined by her appearance. She was intelligent, funny, thoughtful, and incredibly compassionate. She worked as a children's librarian, spending every afternoon helping young readers discover books that made them believe in themselves. She volunteered every Saturday at a community food pantry and spent evenings caring for her aging father, who struggled with serious health problems. While so many people judged her within seconds, almost nobody stayed long enough to discover the extraordinary heart she carried every single day. Eventually, she shared something she had never expected to tell a stranger. Several years earlier, her mother had died unexpectedly, and grief had changed everything. Depression slowly took over her life, and emotional eating became the only comfort she could find during endless lonely nights. Every pound she gained seemed to make the world treat her with less kindness. Employers questioned her discipline. Strangers mocked her in grocery stores. Children pointed at her in shopping malls while embarrassed parents pulled them away without correcting them. Dating became almost impossible because too many people saw only her body and never her soul. Listening to her, I found myself thinking about my own divorce. People had judged me too, assuming I had failed because I wasn't good enough to keep a marriage together. They never knew the late nights, the counseling, the tears, or the months I spent trying to save something that had already been broken. Pain wears different faces, but loneliness sounds remarkably similar. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about finding the perfect partner. I was simply grateful to share an honest conversation with another wounded human being. Near the end of the evening, my friends finally approached our table, laughing awkwardly as if expecting everyone to appreciate the joke. One of them admitted they thought I would immediately leave after seeing Sarah. Another confessed they had secretly placed bets on how quickly I would walk out. The restaurant suddenly became silent. People nearby stopped eating and turned toward us. Sarah lowered her eyes, clearly wishing she could disappear. I slowly stood up, not because I was angry, but because some moments demand that someone speaks for those who have spent too many years remaining silent. I looked directly at my friends and told them they hadn't embarrassed me at all. The only people who should feel ashamed were those who believed another person's worth could be measured by a number on a scale. I told them that while they spent years searching for perfect appearances, they had overlooked something far more valuable. The woman sitting beside me possessed more kindness, courage, generosity, and strength than many people I had known throughout my life. I reminded them that beauty fades, youth disappears, success comes and goes, but character remains long after everything else has changed. By the time I finished speaking, several people around us were wiping tears from their faces, including one of the waitresses who quietly placed a hand over her heart. Sarah was crying too, but these tears were different. They weren't born from humiliation. They came from finally being seen. She whispered that nobody had ever defended her like that before. I simply replied that it should never have been necessary. Our story didn't instantly become a fairy tale. Real life rarely works that way. We spent months getting to know each other without rushing anything. Together we walked through parks, visited bookstores, attended church services, and encouraged each other through difficult days. Sarah slowly began focusing on her health, not because someone demanded she change, but because she finally believed her life was worth caring for. I continued healing from the emotional scars my divorce had left behind. We became stronger together because neither of us tried to fix the other. We simply reminded each other that every person deserves respect before they deserve judgment. A year later, when I looked around a small gathering of family and close friends celebrating our engagement, I noticed something remarkable. The same people who once laughed at the blind date now apologized with tears in their eyes. They admitted that one evening had changed the way they viewed strangers forever. They realized compassion is often hidden behind the faces the world ignores. The greatest lesson of my life wasn't that I found love where I least expected it. It was discovering that every single person you pass carries invisible battles you may never understand. Sometimes the kindest decision you make lasts longer than the cruelest joke someone else planned. One moment of dignity can restore years of broken confidence, and one act of respect can become the beginning of someone else's healing. Before you leave, tell us in the comments, have you ever judged someone too quickly? Or been judged before people truly knew your heart? If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness can change a life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can hear stories that inspire compassion, hope, and the power of second chances.